Assalamualaikum. My name is Untitled and we will talk about English lessons in this class. First of all, let me tell you what exactly are we going to talk about. This is the book that we are going to discuss in this lesson. We are going to start from Unit 4. And there is a reason behind that, since we are recording these lectures for 4th semester diploma students specifically. But again, students from FSC and other technologies also, they can take help from it. In Unit 4, first of all, I will tell you about the theme of the unit, right? That what or where is, like what are the exact elements that we are going to explore throughout the whole unit. So this unit basically consists of 3 lessons. 2 of them are stories. The first one is determination. The second one is the man who planted trees. And the third one, that is a poem. It couldn't be done, right? In the first part, in this lecture, we are going to discuss determination. This lesson, just focus first of all on the theme of the unit. The book is organized in such a way that it has different units. In each unit, we have 3 lessons, right? In some units, we got stories, essays, and then poem. So poem is there in every unit. We have 7 units. In Unit 7, we will talk about, inshallah, Shakespeare's dramas for student version. They have been translated for you in the student version. We will discuss them, The Merchant of Venice and The King Lear, but later on. Now we are going to talk about Unit 4. Unit 4, the theme of the unit is hope, courage, and determination. Which means that the lessons that we are going to talk about throughout this unit will focus on these 3 things: hope, courage, and determination, right? So exactly, they will try to explain what hope is through a story, of course, that we have in the unit. And then what is courage? What does that even mean? So, normally when we see or when we try to talk about a certain phenomena, we used to give examples, right? Or just, narrate a story. That is the practice of our religious scholars also. If you look at the khutbahs of, Jummah prayers, the Maulvis used to do the same thing. They used to use these tactics. They used to tell us the story, right? For example, honesty. They will explore the concept of honesty, that what honesty is. But at the same time, they will tell us a story. And, after reading that, inculcating the very meaning of story is intended behind that storytelling, right? So first of all, we are going to talk about hope, courage, and determination. It is explored. These 3 phenomena are actually explored in this lesson, determination, which is again written by an anonymous author. It means we don't know who wrote it. We end up having this lesson. So exactly, we don't know who wrote this lesson. Whenever there is, the writer is unknown. Whenever the writer is unknown, so we used to write anonymous. So basically, this lesson, this story, basically, it has been written by a person we don't know exactly. So that is why we wrote, the editor of the book, they mentioned anonymous. In this whole lesson, we are going to focus on these things. First of all, I will explain the text of the book line by line. Then we will, discuss the summary of the whole text. This is a question in the paper, in board and in faculty examination. They used to ask, the students to write the summary of this lesson, right? So we will discuss that also to cover that question in section C of the paper. Then we have exercise of the lesson. Of course, we will, in exercise we have 3 sections: recalling, interpreting, and extended. I will explain all of them. But mostly the examiner used to take, questions from recalling section. So we will discuss that, inshallah. And then, of course, the vocabulary, which is at the end of the lesson. We will also discuss that. So let me first, I hope you have the books. So kindly open your books on page number 123, right? I will show you the book again. This is second year book, English book. Page 123. Let's read the first paragraph. It says, in 1883, a creative engineer named John Roebling was inspired by an idea to build a spectacular bridge connecting New York with the Long Island. However, bridge building experts throughout the world thought that this was an impossible feat, and told Roebling to forget the idea. It just could not be done. It was not practical. It had never been done before. In the very first paragraph, we used to say, in literature, we mostly say, what is the setting of the story? try to understand, this is what we call a figure of speech. And we name it as the setting of the story. By setting of the story, we mean to say the time and place. For example, if I'm going to tell you the story that I was teaching in Ghazali Institute of Medical Sciences, Peshawar in 2018. Now 2018 and Ghazali Institute of Medical Sciences, Peshawar, they are basically the setting of my story. That is the setting of my biography. For example, I'm writing a biography. So when I tell you the place and time of that event, story, poem, whatsoever, that is something we call setting. So the setting of this story is 1883, of course. This is the time they have mentioned. 1883. And of course, it is the USA, we can say, because the bridge is connecting New York with Long Island. Okay? That is basically the setting of the story. So time and place. For example, we don't have the time. So just say the setting of the story is New York. If we have time and place both, just say 1883 and New York, right? Or if we just have the time and not the place, just mention the time, right? Okay, in the first paragraph, they are talking about an engineer whose name is John Roebling. He was inspired. He came up with the idea that I want to connect New York with Long Island through a bridge, which was a long distance, and back in 1883, it was not possible for the engineers to connect them through a bridge. He was basically an engineer by profession. He came up with this idea. So when he presented this idea with, of course, the experts and the people who works in this field, they basically, the experts who used to make buildings, they told John Roebling that this is an impossible idea. You have come up with something that has never been achieved before, so it is like not possible to achieve it now. Like this idea is something that cannot be done. And there's a very famous line that people will always tell you, and that is, it just could not be done. You know, in our society, when you do something new for the first time, or when you come up with a new idea, people will tell you, they will always say, "Ye kaam pehle nahi hua," right? We can't do this, etc. So the same thing happened to him. The experts, even those who were experts in building, though they told him that this idea is something that is not possible, that is not practical, it is not going to, it is not going to be. This cannot be, this cannot become a material. This cannot happen, right? It was not practical. Again, the same traditional line that we used to hear from people who will always discourage you whenever you come up with a new idea. They said this is not practical. And again, it has never been done before. ये बड़ा famous dialogue है लोगों का. They will tell you, ये काम पहले कभी नहीं हुआ. So it means that they discourage John Roebling, and they said this can't be done. It has never been done before. Let's move on to the next paragraph. John Roebling could not ignore the vision of the bridge he had in his mind. John Roebling was a determined person. Now this is why they have, taken this lesson as determination. So he was having this idea in his mind that this is something that I will do it, right? So, John Roebling could not ignore the vision. He was having this idea in his mind that I will build this bridge. He thought about it all the time, and he knew deep in his heart that it could be done. He used to think about it a lot, and in his mind, he was certain. You know, when you used to say, you are not defeated. You are not defeated unless you accept it from here. When you accept it mentally, when you accept defeat mentally, then of course you are defeated. But unless you accept it mentally, you are never defeated. You have to try again and again. So anything that can be done unless you accept the defeat mentally. So John Roebling never accepted defeat mentally. He just had to share the dream with someone else. He thought that if I share this dream of mine with somebody who has the same understanding or the same phenomena about this building making, they or he or she can help me out. So he come up with an idea that I will share that with somebody who will agree with me, who will help me out, who will sort me out. After much discussions and persuasion, he managed to convince his his son, Washington, a budding engineer, that the bridge in fact could be bent. He come up with this idea that I will share this idea with my own son, whose name was Washington. He shared this idea with Washington, and after a lot of discussions, and then he persuaded his son that, since you are an engineer and you can help me out with this, they both agreed that yes, it can be done. So there was another person in the whole world, of course, at least those people who know about the idea, among all of them, just two people agreed, John Roebling and Washington. Let's move on to the next paragraph. Working together for the first time, the father and son developed concepts of how it could be accomplished and how the obstacle could be overcome. Since they were son and father, but they were working for the first time together on a project, they come up with new concepts that how can we tackle this building making thing, and if we face any obstacles, any problems, troubles, how are we going to overcome them? So they were basically making strategies for that. With great excitement and inspiration and the headlines of a wild challenge before them, they hired their crew and began to build their dream bridge. They were having a lot of enthusiasm, they were enthusiastic, and they were inspired, of course, by the idea. And of course, when you do something for the first time, the very concept inspires you, that I am the first one who is going to do this. So that was the idea which inspired Roebling and his son, that we are going to do something that has never been done before. So they hired people. Of course, it was a huge project, so they had to hire so many people. They hired their crew, and they started building the bridge. Let's move on to the next paragraph. The project started well, but it was only a few months underway. A tragic accident on the site took the life of John Roebling. When they started working on the bridge, everything was okay initially, but after a couple of months, when they were halfway during their construction, a tragic accident happened, a very bad, unfortunate accident happened, in which John Roebling, he died. He lost his life, and the very person who came up with the idea, he died basically. Washington was injured and left with a certain amount of brain damage. His son, Washington, he was injured. But he was injured badly. He ended up having, his head, badly injured, and that was an injury which cost him a lot. What was the injury exactly? Which resulted in him not being able to walk, talk, or even move. That injury was so severe that he could not move. He could not talk. He lost his his talking ability, his speaking ability. He lost that. He even lost to the ability of moving around. He could not walk. So he was on the wheelchair or he was on the bed. He could not move at all. Now, when you do something of this sort for the first time, a new thing, and you fail in that, people will always come up with their traditional ways of discouraging you again. What were those exactly traditional ways? They said, we told them so. हमने तो इनको बताया था कि ये नहीं हो सकता. Move for the value, So these type of phrases, they used to start echoing in everybody's mind. We told them so. हमने तो कहा था इनको, that is not possible. That is not going to happen. And आगे, crazy men and their crazy dreams. पागल लोग और पागल लोगों वाले ख्वाब देख रहे थे ये लोग. This was impossible back then in 1883. So people were saying the same thing, about this accident. That we told them, we warned them that this is not going to happen, and they were crazy people. They were still after their dream. So that is why one has lost his life and the other is extremely, or we can say, badly injured. And there is another famous saying: it is foolish to chase wild visions. And according to those people, the normal people, the common folk, they said that it is crazy, it is madness when you try to chase wild visions, when you try to envision something that has never been done before. It is madness. So that was the common reaction from the public, from the masses, from normal people. We are going to discuss the last paragraph of this page. Everyone had a negative comment to make and felt that the project should be scrapped, since the Roeblings were the only ones who knew how the bridge could be built. So when this accident happened, people said that we should close this project. Everybody was demanding. People started to demand that we should stop building this this bridge. It is not going to happen because the very people who came up with the idea, one of them is injured badly. He could not even talk, and the other one is dead. So how can how can you build this building without the the visionaries, the people who came up with the idea? When they are absent, how can you make such a building? So they were of the view that we should stop building the bridge. In spite of his handicap, Washington was never discouraged and still had a burning desire to complete the bridge, and his mind was still as sharp as ever. After such a tragic accident, he lost his father, he lost his speaking skill, he lost his legs, everything. He could not even move, as I mentioned earlier. So after facing such a tragic end, after facing such a tragedy, even then Washington said, no, I will not stop working on this building. He did not want to stop working on that, and he was not discouraged. See, they are telling you, they are giving you the same message that has been there in the very title of your lesson, that is determination. This is what we call determination. That is how we are determined to do something. So this is a huge price that he paid with the life of his father and of his own health. He lost everything. Even then he is not discouraged. He still wants to continue with the project. But the challenge was he could not move, he could not talk. That was the challenge that we are going to explore in the coming pages, and inshallah we will discuss about that in the next lecture. So that was the whole story that we have so far talked about on page 123. Inshallah we will continue from here tomorrow in the next lesson from page 124 and onwards. I hope you have understood the lesson. If there are any questions, please post your comments and question at the end of the video. Thank you very much.